Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Farewell Evangelion, the Neon Genesis Evangelion podcast, as we go through the series bit by bit. My name is Keith, going through for his last time, and as always, I'm joined by Peter.
Hello!
Who is going through for his first. So today we finished off the Campus Apocalypse spin-off series with Volume 4. Shinji Ikari remembers having met the charming, mysterious Kaoru during his childhood, but that's not all. Kaoru has more shocking truths to share about Shinji's own father, Gendo. Shinji and Kaoru, along with their friends Asuka and Rei, must do battle to put an end to Gendo's crazed destruction of the Yggdrasil, the life tree, that pillar sustaining the dimensions of reality. The ultimate fight is on.
Before we get into anything actually podcast related, I just have to say that literally every time you do the intro for this podcast and open with a hello, I'm really tempted to cut you off and respond with a hello back. And it's just literally every time we do a podcast, that's where my mind goes fucking immediately.
I mean, you can. There's nothing stopping you.
I know, there's nothing stopping me other than me realizing that it would derail our podcast and end up having us talk for minutes about something other than Evangelion, which might be for the best. Who knows? Anyways, my prediction from last time is Kaoru dies because Kaoru has to die. Everyone else seems to survive. Also pretty spot on that everyone else seems to survive. And the cat comes back in a major way, which also I'm giving myself points for that one. So, you know what? Overall, pretty solid prediction, Peter. Way to go.
It was a pretty fun reveal that it's also just Gageel. The one
yeah,
that eats.
The cat is just Gageel, yeah. Well then, shall we get into this volume, discuss it thoroughly, share our opinions on it as a whole, and then wrap up this Neon Genesis Evangelion Campus Apocalypse?
It's like you've read the script.
It's almost like, oh yeah, surprise, surprise, this podcast is heavily scripted. Literally every word we say, even when it seems like we're fucking up, was written that way. It's to make us seem more relatable, and hopefully it's working.
We're actually just two AIs in a booth.
I don't know how they put the AIs in a booth, given that they're entirely software, but yeah, we're just two AIs in a booth. Oh, the computer that the AI is running on is in a booth. I understand now. I take it back. My apologies.
We showed 100 episodes of Neon Genesis Evangelion to two AIs, and this is what they came up with.
Honestly, this is about as coherent as I would expect that to actually turn out. Then.
Yeah, we essentially opened up with Leiliel, who we got a glimpse of in the last one following Kaji, is still following Kaji and gets to the school.
Yeah, reveals himself to be the CEO of the company that Kaji works for, and he just happened to stumble across here. And Kaji at first seems to accept that, but then upon further thinking realizes Buddy just walked straight to this room with no hesitation, no wrong turn, so there's something else going on here. And that's when he realizes, you're an angel too, aren't you? And the
angel's like, you're a scientist! He's like, no, you got the wrong guy.
I am just a respectable father figure who's trying to do the best for his adoptive son. Anyways...
Leiliel does the mind freak to him.
Yeah. And while Leiliel's doing the mind freak to him, Asuka is fighting against the other angel in software form.
Yeah, who keeps showing up images of Kyoko to kind of throw her off, and then Shinji just gets grunts.
Yeah, Asuka even calls her out, like, hey, you've only got one trick, you're really bad at this. And so the angel's like, oh, well, if you can kill your mother easily, how about yourself? And then there's a image of Asuka.
And then she immediately gets banned for violating the game's TOS.
Yeah. Meanwhile, yeah, Shinji's just fighting grunts, and then what appears to be an Apache attack helicopter replaces the grunts and starts attacking him. And he escaped into his own bedroom.
Yeah, which is triggering a flashback memory thing?
Yeah, because he sees a picture of him with his mother and loving father, and flashes back to the day his mother had something bad happen to her, but it's not super clear exactly what's happening to her.
Although it is very clear the bad thing that happens to Gendo.
Yeah, so Gendo sees Shinji and is still a loving father at this point and is running to him to try and save him. And Shinji has a realization, is like, no, stop, Dad, don't proceed. And then he's crushed by falling rubble. Dies. Super dead.
But then...
Yes, I'm sure you're wondering now. If Gendo was crushed by falling rubble and is now super dead, who's this man who looks an awful lot like Gendo that's been parading around as Gendo this entire time? Here's a hint. It's Gendo.
Yep, so essentially, the left turn you weren't expecting from this one is this is a multiverse story.
Yeah, and this is Gendo from another multiverse, because essentially what happened... the spoilers were jumping ahead, and we're still talking about this volume, but we're just going to talk about some reveals later on in the volume.
Yeah.
So it turns out this is a multiverse one. The Tree of Yggdrasil connects all the different multiverses, and Yui and the other scientists were essentially exploring Yggdrasil and the multiverse, and then they stumbled into something which broke Yggdrasil and freed the angels, and in the process, Yui had to take the angels' place in the Yggdrasil, but because Yggdrasil was the thing that bound all the multiverses together, Yui from all multiverses is now trapped inside Yggdrasil, so Gendo lost his Yui. Sorry, this particular Gendo lost his Yui, and decided to fucking jump between dimensions to free Yui so that he could have his Yui.
Also, I fucking love the logic of this Gendo when he gets there. He's like, oh, she's already gone. Wait, but this man was Gendo. That means he's me. This is gonna be mine. He's just like, yoink, and takes the wedding ring.
It takes the fucking wedding ring. I don't understand the value of that.
I mean,
sure.
it's so crazy, this one, because this Gendo looks almost nothing like the Gendo that got crushed. So, what was his, like, excuse to people when he came out? It's like, hey, Gendo, what happened? You're wearing different clothes, you got, like, a full beard thing going, you're wearing glasses.
You don't understand. Trauma! And then they're like, oh, okay, that explains it.
We don't want to ask him about it because his wife just died, and that seems insensitive, but it is kind of weird.
Yeah. And, like, everyone was already talking about how his personality completely fucking changed after Yui died, and not to be too weird about it, but, like, if you worked for a major secretive organization, and one day your boss came into work after having a traumatic experience, and looked completely different, behaved completely different, and literally the only thing that was the same between him and the boss who you knew the day before was that he was wearing the same wedding ring, you might start to ask a single fucking question. Just one. One question would be nice.
I mean, he's practically halfway to, evil Ultra-World goatee man.
Yeah. Anyways, smash cut back to Asuka fighting Asuka. And Asuka has another flashback to her telling her mother she doesn't want to be an Eva pilot, although I don't know if pilot's the right word, but she doesn't want to be a Shemhayazai. And she just wants to be happy. And her mother's like, well, that's not an option, but I want you to know I'm doing this so that you can be happy. And remember, there will be people around you who love you, and that's the most important thing. And then Asuka realizes she's always been the person who hates her the most. She hates herself. And so instead of fighting against Shadow Asuka, she hugs Shadow Asuka, and then they work together to kill the digital angel.
How that works specifically, I'm not entirely sure.
Don't ask questions, Keith.
Because she gets
Did you not hear Gendo earlier when he explained that no one was asking a single question? That includes you. You're not allowed to ask a single question.
Damn, because I was going to ask why the core in the digital world works in the outside world.
Too bad, you're not allowed to ask that question. It just does, Keith, okay?
Gendo,
Also,
it just does.
I'm just gonna say this now. After having read this volume, I'm even more sure of our theory from last time where Buddy had planned, or Ming Ming had planned on doing an 18-volume series, or 14 or whatever.
A 40-volume series.
A 40-volume.
A 4.0 volume series.
Yeah, he had planned on doing a 40-volume series, only to find out he's actually doing a 4.0 volume series. Because this last volume feels super rushed in a lot of things that happen. Like, in a single volume, we have just the one plotline of this interloper Gendo. We have Shinji finds out Gendo's an interloper. Shinji accuses Gendo of being an interloper. Shinji gets called crazy and locked up. Shinji gets freed. Shinji proves to the world that Gendo's an interloper. Shinji resolves that plotline. Like, that happens in the course of a single volume. And that is not the only plotline that has start-to-finish resolution in this single volume.
Plus, like, there's a bunch of characters just you have to, like, trust, like, off-screen. It's like, they were fine.
Yeah, and, like, Oh boy, the last 2 chapters where it's just everyone being like, wow, it's kind of crazy how everything's resolved now, and that's just how it fucking ends.
Well, what is it, the twins, when they end up finding that Leiliel was, like, about to beat the shit out of Toji and Hikari, and had, finger mine destroyed Kaji, she kills him. And then later on, when the characters show up to save the kids, they're like, "Oh, Kaji's here. It's okay. He's alive." It's like, oh, okay. Do we get to hear anything else from Kaji for the rest of this volume? No.
Nope.
But he's alive.
And then the 2 angels who have potentially been a big threat up until this point are just like, by the way, we don't want to kill the humans, we just want to protect our own existence. That's the only reason we fought against the Shemhayazai, because the Shemhayazai don't care about humans or angels, they just want to exterminate angels. And, don't care in the slightest about protecting humans.
To be fair, I don't find that as a weird thing for them.
No, I'm fully on board with that. It's just one of those things where, it builds up to a fight, and then they're just like, hey, what if we don't fight? We're just gonna leave.
Damn, that was an option?
Yeah.
And it kind of makes sense, too, the idea, because the big reveal ends up being that the goal of Shemhayazai was actually not to save the Yggdrasil tree and all of the stuff. It was actually just to get Gendo to the point where he could get Yui out of the tree and put Rei and or Shinji into the tree.
Yeah, it was to replace Yui in the tree.
So he needed all the cores in order to do that, and it would bring the world close to destruction before his plan went through, which means he had a really good chance of just ending everything.
And let's keep in mind, where he's fucking with the Yggdrasil, he's not just putting this one world at risk of destruction. He's risking destroying the entire multiverse to do that. So it's kind of understandable that the angels would be ever so slightly opposed to him.
Yeah.
Anyways, they walk away. And at first, Kaoru's like, I'm not going to let you. And then they're just like, no, we're just going to teleport. We're going to teleport away. I hope we never meet again.
Also, Oh, wait, no, that's later. I was going to say, I don't know when if we mentioned it, but they leave the cat behind when they leave. But no, that's when they turn back into kids and decide they're leaving the country.
Yeah, they're going back to Italy. Meanwhile, keep in mind, the young girl twin, as a child, has no memory of being an angel. So she's just like, why are we leaving? And the boy twin's like, because I want to. Anyways, yeah, Shinji and Asuka get out of the capsule, and as previously stated, Shinji immediately accuses Gendo of not being Gendo and of instead being an interloper from another dimension. And Gendo smacks the shit out of Shinji and tells him to be taken away.
Yeah, put him into confinement. And then that's also around the time that Rei and Kaoru end up getting back with their rescued people, and Kaoru and Asuka end up having a conversation where she kind of passed on the information that she also doesn't trust Gendo because Gendo and all the other adults are weird as shit.
Yeah, and she even admits that while they were inside the simulation, she could see what was happening to Shinji, and she assumes Shinji could see what was happening to him. So she also saw the memories of Gendo not actually being Gendo, but saw how Gendo smacked the shit out of his own son, and everyone immediately went along with it, and was like, alright, we're killing Shinji then. Which, they gave justification for why Gendo's the fucking worst in this one, because he's from another dimension and is not the same Gendo who was a father to Shinji.
Yeah. There wasn't so much that he had a big, dramatic shift. More if he was killed and replaced by another him from a dimension, who was just an asshole.
But they didn't really give a great justification for why every other adult in this universe is fully on board with being equally shitty to Shinji.
Yeah, and they do some weird things where they try to justify it, like, for example, when Misato is at Kaji's bedside, she's like, she pretty much like, I was mean to you to drive you away so you wouldn't be in danger, but you still got in danger anyways.
Yeah, it's like, I knew you were more of a father to Shinji than anyone else, which is why I
took Shinji away from you.
Yeah, which is why I didn't take him away from you to protect him or something. It's just like, but that's not what happened. You objectively took him away from Kaji and told Kaji to fuck off entirely when you did so.
You're not a real dad.
Yeah, here's the, like, she doesn't say this out loud at Kachi's bedside, but she has, like, a thought bubble where she says, I didn't steal him away from you to make him happy, you must know this. And it's, no, you did steal him away from him, and it might not have been your purpose, but it had the direct consequence of making Shinji deeply unhappy. You don't get to just say my motivation was the opposite of my actions and pretend like you're still a good person. You're still the fucking worst.
If anything, the unhappiness was a bonus.
Yeah. Fucking Ritsuko also fucking sucks in this version.
To be fair, they never did anything to like make her seem like she doesn't suck in this one, though.
Exactly, though. That's what I'm saying. Is like Misato sucks, but they try and pretend like Misato doesn't suck, and her actions were just weirdly justified. Ritsuko sucks, but they make her unabashedly suck. They just make her suck, and I honestly prefer that rather than trying to be like she's a good character. She just did some shitty things. It's like no, she's just a bitch.
Yeah.
Anyways, Kaoru busts Shinji out of jail and explains that he's an angel. Although he hasn't been taking over human bodies, they've been making clone bodies that he's been taking over.
Now, there is one thing about Kaoru revealing all the information to Shinji that I love, and that's the fact when he's in the prison cell with him, he's like, that man that's using your father's name, fooling everyone to think that's who he is, his real name is Gendo Ikari!
Yeah. Using your father's name and not his own name, which is just so happens to be your father's name.
I mean, really, at this point, I don't think you can even like claim that he was lying. I don't think anyone asked him directly. I think he would have if they did.
Yeah.
Anyways,
after Kaoru explains that he's an angel, Shinji gets a flashback to seeing Kaoru as a child and remembering, oh right, I actually met you when I was a child and you were a child as well. And even back then, my full thought was like, I just want to take care of you because you've got a huge amount of scars and shit, and like, clearly something's wrong with your life. And so when Kaoru's later on like, I'm an angel, I'm an enemy of humanity, Shinji's like, you've been like, taking a huge burden upon yourself, like, can't we just be like, bros, can't we be friends? Is that
low-key trying to riz me this whole session, and you're gonna go that now?
And Kaoru's like, holy shit, Shinji still loves me, this is great.
This is what they call crying, I believe.
Why does my eyes feel like they're burning at the back? Humans experience tears when they're happy, is this that?
And then we also get to find out that Rei, kind of in a shift from previous things, is that she's an artificial being created to replicate Lilith, but she herself is not an angel.
Yeah, this is one of the few times where she's fully aware of the angels and the fact that Kaoru is one, but she herself is not an angel. She's just essentially an artificial clone of Yui.
Yeah. So, kind of still the same function that Gendo had in other versions, where she was the catalyst for making it possible for the real Yui to come back, but a bit of a different method in this one, where in other ones she is part angel. This one, she's just artificial.
Yeah. But we get to see a fun moment that I've been wanting to see in every version. So, like, that is one redeeming factor for this, which is we get to see Rei fully stand up to Gendo. Like, we see moments where they aren't fully on the same side, but it's usually at the end when Gendo's full time to destroy the world, and Rei's like, actually, I'm gonna go help Shinji. But it's never, like,
fuck you,
Rei... It's never Rei being against Gendo, it's more so Lilith deciding to side with Shinji. Whereas this is one of the few times where Rei, fully as Rei, still being with emotions, is like, hey, have you ever considered, fuck you? I care about Shinji a lot more than I care about you. And Gendo's like, you know what, that's fair. You can go. Walk away now.
Just turn your back to me for a few moments while I reach into the
Turn your back and walk away. And then, yeah, he shoots her in the fucking back.
And I do agree with you. I think this development on Rei, if it would have been similar in the like actual main series, would have been a more fulfilling like end to her character arc. But
yeah,
obviously doesn't happen in that one. She's more of just like last minute, whoops, guess I'm holding that hand over there. Fuck you.
Yeah.
But in this one, she actually kind of builds up, and they even touch on the point that she was supposed to be the replica to pretty much slip into Yui's place, but she was no longer able to because she had developed into her own person that was like had her own dreams and stuff.
Yeah, she was incapable of taking Yui's place because she wasn't Yui. She was an entirely separate being who just looked like Yui.
Yeah. Whereas in the original series, Rei is kind of just a vessel the whole way through and doesn't really do much. Like, she's always surprised about her self-awareness, I guess, in the original series, and doesn't really come into it.
Yeah.
And just to get across how, like, ruthless this Gendo is, he also just fucking shoots Rei, as you mentioned.
Yeah. Fucking wild. Anyways,
this is where the kids get into the car and the cat...
Talk about going back to Italy, and yeah, they're not bringing Gageel with them. This is the reveal that the cat has been Gageel the entire time, which is great.
And Gageel is Gageel the Devourer, by the way. That's his name.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Says, the little girl who doesn't have knowledge that she's an angel, starts talking about how she feels bad that she never got to see Shinji again and never got to properly thank him. And Makoto, which is the boy's name as I now know, starts, like, having a thought bubble of, like, damn you, Shinji, you were the thing that me and Says were close our entire life, but then you showed up and finally drove a wedge between us, and we're no longer one being with two hearts. We're now two separate beings. And even has the thought bubble of, yeah, you'll probably see him again, but, like, he'll be enemies that time. It's like, I'm not entirely sure he will be enemies at that time. Like,
especially considering how this ends.
Yes.
And then we get to the penultimate chapter, which it has Misato finally deciding she's going to stand up to Gendo and, like, get him to release Shinji. Runs into Asuka and they head off to the office. They don't get an answer. They start panicking, break into the room, and like, dear God, someone shot Rei!
Yeah, they hear gunshots and she starts asking Gendo to let her in because she assumes Gendo's in danger at first. And then breaks open the door. And I think this is the moment that fully switches her over, because you can see early on, she just asks Asuka to talk to her and, like, explain what happened, and even then, she's like, I have to make a request to Gendo to free Shinji. It's not, I'm gonna go bust Shinji out, it's, I'm still working for Gendo, but I think it's wrong of him to lock Shinji up right now. And then...
just a funny thing, kind of, I get the feel of for this one. It feels like almost the lab technicians, the other three, like Hyuga, Oba, and Maya, were the more of, like, the moral center that, like, had this, like, completely takeover plan ready to go at a moment's notice.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing that, like, switches Misato over to the side of, hey, Gendo's a dick, we're not supporting him at all anymore, is her seeing Rei get shot by Gendo, and, like, having the flashback of seeing how much Rei and Shinji were growing together and how much they cared about each other, and her being like, you're not Gendo. One thing's for sure, Gendo never referred to Shinji as Akari. He only ever called him Shinji because he loved his son.
Who are you really? I'm Gendo Akari. I said stop lying to me!
Yeah.
And then obviously Ritsuko shows up with a military force, because he has apparently a very strong control over most of the forces here that we've never seen.
Yeah. Also, it turns out they've developed an anti-angel weapon that will fully kill... Well, it won't kill, but it will shut them down and make them weaker than humans.
Anyways. Also, Asuka also gets revealed that Kaoru's an angel here.
Yes. Also, earlier on, when Kaoru revealed to Shinji that Asuka was an angel, Shinji's like, do the others know? And Kaoru's like, I mean, Rei knows, but you know how Asuka feels about angels. There's no way I'm telling her. She'd hate me. And Shinji's like, you don't understand Asuka the way I do.
She hates everybody.
She would understand because you're already her friend, but, like, the longer you go without telling her, the more she'll hate you. It's like, so wait, would she hate him for being an angel and lying about it, or would she just not hate him at all? Like, I'm unclear.
Quick, Calvin, there's a math equation here. How long have you known her? How long has she not known? We're gonna figure out exactly how mad she's gonna be.
Yeah, here's the thing. She's not gonna hate you for being an angel. She is gonna hate you, but it's because you didn't tell her you were an angel. She still hates you, but it's just the math is slightly different now, you see?
We're gonna have to carry a bunch of twos for this one. I hope you're happy, Kaoru. But Shinji was pretty much spot on. She was perfectly fine with it.
Yeah, and she even has a similar conversation with Rei, which is usually confrontational, but Rei's bleeding out in front of her. And she's like, you don't understand. I hate a lot of people. I'm not going to invest time in getting to know and spending time with someone I don't like. So we're friends now. Fuck you. We're stuck with that situation. You're my friend. You're still my friend. Also, I don't forgive you, so you need to live so I can punish you later.
And it turns out Kaoru's also a promise breaker.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hyuga and the others end up doing their takeover Nerve or whatever facility action. But by this point, it's too late as Ritsuko's already taken Shinji separately off to the Yggdrasil tree.
Yeah.
And then Kaoru ends up going off, and then Asuka encounters him, and that's when we have the whole thing of like, oh, you owe me one.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Ritsuko's bringing Shinji below the roots of the Yggdrasil tree. And Shinji's like, hey, Ritsuko, why do you obey that man so blindly? Like, why don't you question a single thing she says? And Ritsuko opens with the revelation of, I used to be in love with your father. And that implies, because she's fully aware of the fact that that's not Shinji's father, that's a separate Gendo, that she was in love with a completely separate man. That man died. Essentially a doppelganger showed up and took his place, and she's like, good enough. Because Shinji even points out, hey, that man's not my father. Why are you supporting him still? And she's like, you're too young to understand.
I only care about the name Gendo Ikari.
He doesn't look like your father or act like your father, but the thing I was in love with was the name.
I don't know, he seems like the kind of man that would never do anything he'd ask, that he wouldn't ask his staff to do in his place.
Yeah, this... I do enjoy how this Ritsuko is just a bad person, and
just completely
they don't even try and, like, justify her, actions in any way. Like, the closest they get to justifying is, you wouldn't understand, and that's their effort to justify her being how she is.
You know what, Ritsuko? I think I agree with this one. I don't understand it. I don't think I would if you tried to explain.
Yes.
That's why you're the scientist, and I'm just the guy reading the book. And then, apparently, this is another one where it does feel like it was kind of rushed, and they had a bunch of storylines that they had to figure out, because
yes.
It appears that we didn't need all of the angel cores to do this.
Yeah, we have a single angel core that Gendo puts into, like, a receptacle, and then the tree breaks apart. Also, we get another scene that I think is better quality than the rest of this, is how I'm going to phrase this. Higher quality than I would expect from what I've read of this series so far. Which is Gendo saying he's doing all this to save Yui.
Yeah, should you sacrifice yourself for your mother? Don't you want to do that?
Yeah, don't you want to save your own mother from the fate she's befallen and sacrifice yourself so she doesn't have to be there? And then Shinji straight up calls Gendo out and he's like, your goals don't even make fucking sense. You say you're doing this to save your mother. Or save my mother. Save Yui. But the problem is, you don't see me as your son. Why would any Yui out there that wasn't originally your wife, see you as her Gendo, when none of the fucking Yuis that are actually out there will be your Yui. Your Yui is just objectively gone.
Yeah.
Why do you seem to assume that your relationship with Yui, a different Yui from a different multiverse, will be different from my relationship with you? Why do you assume they'll be different? He's just like... Sorry, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that itself kind of, like, exemplifies how more villainous this Gendo almost comes off as, because where all the other Gendos were like, in my timeline specifically, I need to bring the Yui I loved back. But this one, it seems like he didn't even love Yui in the first place. He was just obsessed with her in a way.
Yeah, yeah, and he even says that Yui was all I had, Yui was my everything. You know, to make a topical reference to modern society, for this 2,000-year-old book, which clearly this was ripping off modern society.
2,000-year-old book.
This book from the year 2000, not this 2,000-year-old book.
The original Evangelion storyline.
This is a lot like Multiverse of Madness, the Doctor Strange movie, where Scarlet Witch's whole motivation is she's going across the multiverse to find children to replace her lost children, and not her children, and she even traumatizes those children to try and make them her children instead of their actual mother's children. And that's what this Gendo comes across like. I don't care about having a Yui that loves me, I care about finding a replacement Yui for the Yui I lost, and I will kidnap her and make her deeply unhappy just to make her mine. Like, that's how this Gendo fucking comes across.
Yeah.
Anyways, speaking of things being rushed, Gendo drops the single Eva core into the tree, and then, like, 6 pages happen, and everything happens so fast I don't understand what's happening. Because Shinji gets grabbed by the roots of the tree, and then Kaoru reveals the angel core in his chest. He seems to imply that he was actually Yggdrasil originally, because his core is Yggdrasil's core. And then smash cut to Kaoru going into the tree and Gendo looking sad. And then I don't understand. Like, Kaoru has a conversation with Shinji, and Shinji's like, there's nothing I could do. And Kaoru's like, you did everything you had to do. And then Shinji wakes up and is next to the cat. Like,
here, take
what is the climax here, Keith? I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, so that was part of the thing I did have prepared for talking about this one. One thing I do want to talk about before we get into that, though, is Gendo's death in this one.
I wasn't even sure Gendo died. Like, I can't fucking tell what's going on.
The rocks behind him are implying that he's about to be crushed, as he's like,
much like the original Gendo did. Of course.
But the thing is, because like the Yui in the tree is like, come to me, and he's like, of course. All I had to do was come to you. We're just like, yeah, of course. I just had to kill myself when you died.
Yeah, no, this is a dumb Gendo.
So the idea, there's kind of like 2 arguments for the ending here. One is that Kaoru, who's now Yggdrasil fully, is able to kind of rewrite reality in a sense. So he puts Shinji, Asuka, and Rei into a position where they can live a happy life, or he puts everyone into another reality. Because their one kind of gets destroyed at the end because of all the nonsense. And there's no definitive answer. Those are the 2 options we got.
I don't know, man. It goes from Shinji being captured by Gendo and being pulled into the Yggdrasil roots, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more pages before the words end. This shit was fucking rushed. That is how it feels.
To kind of put it in the context of the other things, normally how Shinji ends up being the person at the end who gets like the power and like rewrites reality, Kaoru is essentially just that person at the end. Shinji's in there as well, but kind of in the same way that Yui's inside the Eva.
Yeah.
So, it's not really Shinji in charge, just happens to be in there with them. Then they have their little send-off like Shinji does with Rei / Lilith at the end of the other series. And then he sends Shinji back. Now, whether, they were sent back to the reality with everything calm, he had to, rewind time to, move everything back before the bad stuff happened, or if they're in another reality altogether. That's not really clear in itself. But yeah, very Deus Ex Machina powers of Kaoru there.
Also, the final 2 pages of the All Is Well version also just seem fucking weird. Gaegil shows up, which I'm fully on board with, mostly because it makes my prediction correct that Gaegil returns in a big way, because otherwise, if Gaegil didn't show up and we just had the plot of the 2 twins leaving and talking about how Gaegil's left behind, I would have to take some points off because he didn't show up in a big way. But Gaegil showing up, and then the last 2 pages are essentially just Shinji talk about how he's going to take care of the cat from now on, and Asuka's like, well, I mean, you can't keep it, and Shinji's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, that's what you always used to say, I can't. Anytime anyone asked you to do anything, you said, I can't. And so, it's weird that you're now willing to say, I can take care of this cat. And that just seems like such a weird conversation, because that was not something that was established at all in the series.
It definitely seems like it's more referencing the original storyline and not the own story it's in.
Yeah. Once again, this was a pretty rushed series, but, there was a little bit of Shinji's being, opposed to fighting angels. But even then, he never was, shouting I can't and running away and refusing to do it.
He didn't have the time to. There wasn't enough volumes.
Exactly. The, one instance of that we got was the very first fight with Ramiel after he got his Eva. when he didn't shoot because he didn't fully understand what was happening. But the start of the next volume, he was fully on board with fighting angels, arguably to protect his friends, but still, like, there was no large series of him being like, I can't do this. So just the conversation of Asuka calling him out for being a completely different person, because he used to say I can't as a response to everything. Also,
his response should have been, fuck off, Asuka, I was dead in a tree for a while.
Yeah.
I had some life-changing event happened.
If she's gonna call him out for saying I can't to everything, have some scene where, like, before all the angel shit happens, she asks him to help clean up the room, and he says, I can't, and runs away. Like, actually establish this as a character trait of him if you're going to make fun of him for it.
Yeah. And that's why I was like, it kind of feels like it's more directed at, you know, the main storyline Shinji from, like, the 26 episode run, and not so much the one that we saw in the story. In fact, if you look at all the character development stuff that got rushed, it kind of feels like it's expected that you understand the character a bit more clearly than what's presented in the book.
Yeah. Also, the, like, very last page is Asuka trying to hit on Kaji through Shinji. Be like, hey, ask Kaji if he's got some free time. And, she's like, I got nothing to lose by trying, right? Plus, I have youth on my side, unlike Misato, so clearly it's gonna work out for me. And then Rei just pipes up like, I should try as well, I have nothing to lose either. And both Shinji and Asuka are like, what the fuck are you talking about, Rei? And it's a secret. Because, she's gonna ask out Shinji.
Or Kaji. That's kind of how I got the impression from that one, if you just, like, don't look beyond the surface.
Yeah, if you don't look beyond surface, it does seem like she's about to ask out Kaji. But there was earlier on when she got shot, and Misato thought to herself she loved Shinji, and it's just like, man, it's weird that you're like this invested in your students' lives, that you're tracking the crushes of middle school students, but good for you, Misato.
Mean, from what I hear, it's not that entertaining being a middle school teacher.
Yeah, it's fair.
Also, kind of a new context thing, but reading this again with the revelation that the cat is Gagiel, I just can only immediately think about the Flurkins from the Captain Marvel movie.
Yeah. Turns out, I was about to say that Marvel Cinematic Universe cribbed off of this series a fair bit, but I refuse to give this series credit for anything like that. So instead what I'm going to say is, turns out Ming Ming's from the future, and cribbed off of Marvel. That's why it felt so rushed, because they assumed they were going to get an entire MCU of like 60 movies, and instead they got 4 volumes of fucking manga.
Ming Ming came from the future, back to 2,000 years ago to write this story.
Yeah. Wrote the story 2,000 years ago, but had just the dickens of a time finding someone who's willing to publish a manga back in the year 23 AD, and had to wait until the year 2000 to actually get it published.
Just sitting there, it's like, it's gonna be so good in 2,000 years.
Oh, Ming Ming actually wrote the, like, real-life Dead Sea Scrolls so that they would fit with the Ava reference.
The original ARG.
Yeah. So, Keith, what'd you think?
So, I do like this one, but I will say there's definitely a level of nostalgia glass on this one, as this is one I read when I was very early in my Evangelion experience. I do think this one has a lot of really cool, good ideas that ultimately end up suffering because it does feel so rushed, though. Like, as we mentioned before, the Rei standing up to Gendo was amazing. Even the ending aspect of, like, Kaoru sacrificing himself in a more not rip off my head type of way.
Yeah, I will say, first of all, hands down, this one is better than Pico Pico Middle School. I will 100% give this to that one. Or give that to this series. I don't think it's spectacular. I think it definitely has its flaws. But you're right, there are a lot of moments where if this series was given more time, or even if you just took those moments out of the series and put them into the original manga or the original anime, I think those moments would have been spectacular.
Yeah.
It's just, the way they're handled in this one, they don't have the ability, or they didn't take the time to set up the moments to be as impactful as they could have been.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
There were some really cool moments.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I have looked through it to see if there is any information online about did it get cut short or something like that, and couldn't find anything. So we probably won't know what exactly happened that caused that stuff to feel rushed. It's just fortunate that it did.
I'm sticking with my 4.0 versus 40 theory.
Yeah, that is definitely a good one. But overall, like, the other thing I also really like is the angels feel more fleshed out than the original. Like, there's like a few angels that kind of felt like they had somewhat of a personality because they were more narratively important. Like, obviously, Kaoru's Tabaris or Laeliel, because they have the whole conversation with Shinji in his mind, going through his memories. But this one actually kind of makes the angels more interesting, I find.
Yeah, it's what we were saying after reading the last volume, where this one took the time to make the angels very interesting characters, but unfortunately didn't seem to take the same time with the actual human protagonists. So
yeah, and that kind of goes into the feeling that the expectation is you know what Asuka's like, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on her.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, but it does work out relatively okay. And it's just one of those things where I kind of want to see... No, I'm not going to finish that sentence because someone's going to send me some fucking fanfiction.
We already put it out the call.
I know, and I'm willing for people to send me their own personal fanfiction. I don't want someone to find the fanfiction that already exists of this but that. So I'm not going to say I want to see this but that. I don't know, man. There was a lot of good moments. There were things I really liked about this series, but overall, I think the rushed nature of it took away from that a bit much.
Yeah.
Even though earlier on I was saying I wish this was just a 1-2 dunk like Detective Diaries, I still kind of wish that about this, because those are refreshing, the quick and easy series. Not that this was especially long. But this one feels like I just kind of feel like 4 volumes is just the worst length it could have, because if it was shorter, they wouldn't bother setting up plot points that couldn't be properly resolved.
Yeah.
But if it was longer, they could take the time to flesh out those plot points.
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately the thing. This one, even though we kept saying, like, oh, like, there was flaws in it, and, like, there's some really cool moments, the story at the heart of it is interesting enough that I could spend a few more volumes in this world.
Yeah. Them taking the time to flesh out the angels, if they also... Like, honestly, if this one had, like, a volume 0 that took place before this one opened up, because this one kind of opens up right in the action, if they took the time to not even introduce angels for the first volume and just take that time to give all the characters a backstory, because all the characters are already going to school together in this fucking series, so you don't need to introduce them through fighting angels. You can introduce the characters as they are via just being students, and then have the first volume end with the appearance of Ramiel and Shinji realizing there's a secret world beyond what he's already knows.
Yeah, a lot of stories like this tend to do this. To give an example, one other series I like to read, Fate Stay Night, the whole first volume is just him doing monotonous school things, and everyone like, hey, can you do this for me? And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And he does the stuff for him because, like, everyone like kind of uses him in a sense, but he doesn't care because he's like, I'm helping people. And then it ends with him getting fucking stabbed in the chest at the end of the first volume.
Yeah, honestly, I was about to say that's what I want from this, but not to end with Shinji being violently stabbed, but I honestly wish the first volume was just establishing the characters and who they are, and then ends with Ramiel, and then this series can play it roughly the way it did, but we've already built up some characters, so they have a bit more time to focus on the angels, while also adding to the characters as they've already been created, and then, honestly, add an extra volume at the end so that they could not rush the finale so much. Like, if this had been a 6-volume series with an extra one at the beginning and an extra one at the end, allowing them to flesh out the characters in the first one and flesh out the endings in the last one, I think that would have been ideal.
Yep.
Anyway, it's not a bad series, but room for improvement.
Yeah. One little fun thing to just throw in here, because this was a question that was asked to the creators about if Mari and Toji would have gotten an Eva in this series, what would have taken the form of? Do you have any guesses for what you think what weapons they might have had? Because the idea was the weapons to have a reflection of their personality in a sense.
Toji would have had a pair of brass knuckles, and Mari a gun, but not a pistol like Shinji, like a rifle.
According to it, they would have given Mari claw gloves, kind of like Wolverine claws in a sense.
Sure.
And Toji was a shotgun.
Okay, so I had them backwards
Yeah.
and slightly off, but no, I stand by Toji would have had fucking brass knuckles.
Yeah, brass knuckles are like a baseball bat would have been good.
Yes. Then we still have that interaction of Toji punching Shinji for being uncareful, but it's him punching him with the Ava.
Yeah, that ends up wrapping up Campus Apocalypse. So, short volume, or 4-volume series. Good, but definitely had lots of area for improvement.
Yep. As a heads up, before we get into the wrap up for this one, I just want to remind the fans that we are taking a hiatus for the holidays, as well as probably taking a bit of extra time to reconfigure how we're doing the podcast. There might be changes in the new year, so no episodes in the super near future, but we will come back eventually in some form.
Yeah, and don't forget, if you have any suggestions on topics we could cover within this realm, of course, send that to our email as well.
Yeah, shoot us an email and tell us what you want us to talk about. Please, someone send us an email saying, I don't want you to talk about Ava anymore. Talk about anything other than Ava.
Welcome to Farrell again, where we talk about obscure anime number 3.
Oh, ooh. Also, I misheard you for a second. I didn't hear obscure. I heard upskirt, and I was like, Keith, I'm pretty sure an upskirt anime is just hentai, is what you're describing right now. I mean, I don't know what that's about. That's weird and perverted and not something I would be personally familiar with.
Well, our hands are tied. It's up for the fans to decide.
Yep.
But we'll start with the wrap-up now. So, as always, if you'd like to send us an email, you can send that email to whatismypodcastabout@gmail.com. On top of that, these episodes go up every Wednesday on all podcasting platforms, except for the next few weeks while we're off. But you can like, favorite, subscribe, tell a friend, leave a review. Word of mouth is also great for spreading the podcast around to new people. We also have the Farewell Evangelion Instagram page, where we update little tidbits and facts about the series you go through. We're pretty quick about getting back to there as well, and that will be mostly active while we're on our hiatus as well. And lastly, before we leave, Peter, what can we expect from the next episode of Farewell Evangelion?
We can expect all of our lovely fans who adore this podcast to wait patiently for another upload, because who fucking knows exactly when it's going to happen. Also, plenty of fan service.